Shoulders gently roll backwards. Eyes gently closed. Shift your eye gaze to the center of your eyebrows or the third eye, also referred to as the Jyotishmati, the light of awareness within. Take a deep breath. We'll begin today's session with an opening prayer. Follow with me. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We seek blessings to be nourished together. We seek blessings to give us the 100% effort in our today's session. We make sure that there is no hatred or competition between us, and let there be peace everywhere. And with that wonderful intention, let's begin today's Patanjali's Yoga Sutra study with a prayer to Maharshi Patanjali. Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam shariram cha vaidyakena vyopakarotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. Maharshi Patanjali is credited to giving us this yoga science to restrain the turbulent mind. Also, Patanjali gave us the grammar for the language Sanskrit or for the speech. And also Maharshi Patanjali is credited to giving us Ayurveda to keep our body healthy. And it's often believed that Chakra, who is the inventor of Ayurveda, is supposed to be a reincarnation of Maharshi Patanjali. For that great sage Maharshi Patanjali, we offer our salutations. So with that, let's begin today's session. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to continue the Patanjali Yoga Sutra study from what we've done last week, and where we talked about what's the yoga philosophy. And today we are going to focus on the 5 vrittis, or the 5 tendencies of the mind, and the 2 keys that Patanjali revealed to restrain the turbulent mind. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes.
So before we begin, are there any questions on what we covered so far? So let me do a quick recap. But before I begin the study, I want to offer my salutations and pranam to Sriramji and his wife Ekaji. And whatever the knowledge that I have of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras is nothing but Sriramji's blessings. And I take it as my greatest privilege and honor that I could at least, articulate about, maybe 2 to 3% of what, Sriramji shared with me. And for about 1.5 years since I studied Yoga Sutras, with Sriramji, in fact, for about a year and a half, this used to be my Suprabhat. Every day morning, I would listen to one of his talks, and every time I listened to it, I discovered new dimensions and new layers of the deeper meaning. Particularly Sriramji, who studied yoga for almost 20 years from the age of 12. He is very well versed in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, Vedas, and Upanishads, and lots of Shankara's works. And the way he brings everything together in a contemporary, modern way, so that all of us can easily understand the essence of Yoga Sutras is very, very profound. So I strongly encourage you to go to Ekashri Schools of Yoga and obtain for yourself the recordings of the Yoga Sutra, the sessions. So what I'm here trying to do is my small attempt to share some of my interpretations based on the study with Sriramji, and also my own study with several of you and other gurus, particularly on the Advaita philosophy. So the one quick recap, what we talked about was sutra. Sutra is derived from the Greek word sutra, means a thread. So Patanjali Yoga Sutras is a composition of 196 aphorisms of the sutras. A sutra is defined with about 6 attributes. Number one is alpaksharam. It is very terse, very few words, and to articulate the meaning, to articulate the essence. Asandigdham, there is no confusion. Um, Vishwatomukam, it needs to bring the multifaceted, the perspective of different facets. And then Saravat, it needs to capture the entire essence of the system. It should not just cover one dimension of it, but rather cover the entire essence. And then Astobam Anavadyam, there is no repetition or there is no filler words. And then Anavadyam, it should be an irrefutable truth. An irrefutable truth by what we mean is Jat Desha Kala Samayana Vichinna. This truth transcend a time or the dimension of time or the region or the locale. So it's almost like a universal essence that is eternal. And if you contrast this with a shloka, like what is in the Bhagavad Gita, in the shloka, there is always a pattern, a structure, and there is rhyming, and some of the same concepts are repeated, and it's almost like a song. But sutras is literally very direct. So the 196 sutras from Patanjali are broken into four padas. The first one is Samadhi Pada. This is typically where the entire essence of the Yoga Sutras is captured. So for advanced practitioners who are already very advanced in their journey, they don't really need to go to all the other practices. They can simply capture the essence of the yoga system, and then they could be on their journey to enlightenment. But for many of us who are at the beginnings of our journey, then the second chapter is Sadhana Pada, where there are a lot of practices on how to get to the Samadhi state or the enlightenment or the Equanimous state. And then the third one is Vibhuti Pada, where Patanjali, upon practicing of this yoga system, what are some of the superpowers that you're going to realize within? But the most important power is samyama. Samyama is the path to excellence or path to control on any pursuit that you want. In fact, particularly for our kids, we need to teach the secret of samyama so that they could be successful in whatever the pursuit that they have. And then the last one is the Kaivalya Pada and the path to liberation, and how do you attain the freedom. The interesting thing about this Patanjali Yoga Sutras is, as we said, there are only about 3 sutras on the postures, the asanas, and about 6 sutras on the pranayama, the breath technique. Everything else is about the yoga way of life. So, today's yoga system, a lot of emphasis on the physical postures, but the true essence of yoga is to transcend the body and the mind. And the first sutra, a quick recap, is Atha Yoga Anushasanam. And Patanjali doesn't waste any time. And he immediately gets to, it's like, Atha, now yoga, take to the practice of yoga as a self-discipline, Anushasanam. Shasana means discipline. Anushasanam is a discipline that you impose on yourself. And why do we need to come to the practice of yoga? In life, if you were to reflect on your own journey, we've always been chasing different pursuits in the hope that each one of the goals is going to result in a permanent happiness. But what you realize is anything that you chase after, anything that you accumulate externally will only result in an ephemeral or the temporary happiness. And we're always in this continuous search of what is that permanent state of happiness. And what Patanjali says is, now come to the practice of yoga. And then that is the sure shot recipe of how to be in the state of eternal joy and the happiness. And that's what is also said in the Bhagavad Gita. Yogastha kur karmani. First establish in yoga and the harmony, and then act. In life, we first act and try to get something to get to the happiness, but we need to reverse the system. And the second sutra that we covered last time this is probably the most profound sutra, which is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Chitta is mind, and Chit is the consciousness, the vibhuti or the sakshi or the Satchidananda that is resident within us, the source of light, the divine light, that is within us. The chitta is the mind that actually creates a projection of an illusion or superimposition that creates a false identity of us. And that actually masks the divine, the identity that who we are. In fact, in Sanskrit, that says chitta is chit iti bhavayeti chittaha. So the chit, when the one that masquerades, is known as chitta. And this mind, if you observe it, mind actually always going in different directions. Mind's true nature is to engage in different activities, turbulent activities. Is always engaging in thoughts, and it's processing external stimuli, the images that are coming to us. It's processing through all the sensory perception. And in fact, if you literally observe the mind is like almost like a TV. The only thing here is this is a giga channel TV. It's constantly producing the scenery or the movies for us to process, and based on the external stimuli. And also, it also produces its own images from within based on our impressions and the karma, or our own internal the memories that we have. It's a constant memory making, the movie making stuff. And that memory or the image is presented to chitta. Chitta is just a witness. And it's just joyfully watching the game that is being presented by the mind. And in that, movies create us into different type of emotions. Sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are happy, and sometimes we think that other person is good, sometimes other person is God. We are always in this turbulent roller coaster ride. And yoga is all about restraining this mind's image making or scenery making tendency, and let it be simply a translucent. It's almost like a surface of a clear lake, so that the true divine light that is within us simply gets projected upwards. And that projected upward means it is reflected in all the actions, the way we conduct ourselves. And then when that mind's restraining, when mind is restrained, and when it becomes translucent, and Patanjali gets into the third sutra, which is tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. The drashtuhu, the witness, the Satchidananda that is residing within us, that is our true nature, that's swarupe avasthanam. Then we get reposed in our true identity, which is nothing but the self, which is the divine, or the Satchidananda that we have. So within 3 sutras, Patanjali got to the full essence, which is take to the practice of yoga. And yoga is all about restraining the turbulent mind and the tendencies. And then when you do that, you get reposed in your true identity, which is the self. And then how do we define our true identity, the self, the nature of our true, the seed or the divine within? This is defined in Sankhya as Nitya, Suchi, Sukha, Atma. Nitya means we are eternal. There is no time dimension to our identity. But the moment what we do is with the sensory perception, with our mind, we often mistake our identity to be with this physicality, like this body or this costume. And when you identify with your physicality, what happens? It's temporal. I mean, it's finite. And then it gets sick, it gets distorted, both mind and the body. So, but once with the yoga, we then get reposed in realization of true identity, which is Nitya. We are eternal. Suchi, that means we are always pure. We don't ever get into an impure state. Sukha, we are always happy. It's only with the mind's projection. Shankara calls it as a dhyasa, the superimposition. This mind's projection confuses it with the wrong identity, and then we become worried because we are worried about sick. We get into different moods, and then we also the true identity is where Atma comes from the word atom. That means we are indivisible. And the fact is we are divine, and then the same divine exists in everybody around us. So we are all the sense of one. And then the next sutra, what it basically says is, when you're not reposed in the self, when you are not restraining your mind, the turbulent mind, then Patanjali says the alternate course, which is what we live, which is that vritti sarupyam itaratra. So when your vrittis, the tendencies, the mind are not restrained, then the mind presents different images. Sarupyam itaratra. It takes different forms. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are angry, sometimes we go through the roller coaster moods, and we identify ourselves with somebody who's belong to America, somebody belong to a different region. We are thin, we are this, and not only that, we create a separation. Then we identify with different shapes, and we also start identifying different people. There is separation of you versus me. There's all this big drama that we can see in the world right now, right? The deeper polarization. Vritti sarupya mitratra. I mean, we can see this manifest in a beautiful way in contemporary world affairs. And the root cause of all this is because we are not able to restrain our turbulent mind. And this is a universal problem. And the only solution that we have is to be able to take to the practice of yoga, to be able to restrain our turbulent mind. Any questions so far before we move into the next topic? I know Sunilji and Ramakantji, you guys started a little bit late.
Sriniji, I think you used the two words, chitta and chit, right? So these two are different words. I'm sensing, right?
Yes. Chit is that our true identity. If you look at the names like Shankara always refers, Sat Chit Anand, Satchidananda. Chit is consciousness. This is the seer with,
okay.
Like and in fact that is also referred to as Brahman and Atman, and Chit is that eternal witness, the divine light that is our true identity. That's a consciousness. And sometimes it's also referred to as Purusha. Purusha is, sometimes I used to mistaken that with the gender, Purusha and this stuff. But Sanskrit definition of Purusha is Purah means, residing, Isha, which is like, where the Isha resides. Is Purusha. It is like, so that the seer where it resides is Purusha. So like, for example, the Purusha now resides within our body. So that is, so the Chit is our true identity, which is that pure consciousness, right? When you say Sat, Chit, Ananda, Sat is pure, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is the joy or the blissful state. So Chit is that eternal witness or the light that's within all of us. And Chitta is the projection, the mind. So what happens is, because we have this mind, so this mind actually projects a different image for us. Now we are all identified with our, the physicality, our location, and so on and so forth. The Chitta is actually a movie making machine, a memory making machine, and that's constantly producing different images about the situations and who we are and what are the people around us. But once you restrain that chitta and start purifying itself, then the chitta is going to be essentially, it's like it just becomes a surface of a clear lake. All it's doing is it's simply letting the light to reflect. So our job is to suppress the chitta or purify the chitta so that the chit start exhibiting itself. Does it make sense?
Yes.
And Ramakantji, anything that you want to add?
No, it's perfect. We are going in the energized, fantastic direction.
Yeah. So it essentially, it is like, this is chitta is like manomaya kosha, and obviously what is behind the anandamaya kosha is the chit.
Exactly.
Is that a fair statement?
Okay. Exactly. But the thing is, even you have to purify all these koshas from Annamaya to Pranamaya. It's just like, so you have to purify our gross level existence and so on and so forth, so that the Manmaya kosha, the chitta becomes, purified. I mean, chitta is like, supposedly like a mirror, right? But when our chitta is impurified because of our conditioning,
yeah, I think I think I'll pull up some infographics. By the end of the session, I think once Sriniji is done, maybe I can share a few pictures on the Chitta and the Chitta separately.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's actually move to some of the beautiful examples. And Patanjali is almost like, today we give a lot of credit to Sigmund Freud, who studied the mind and the psychology. But one thing that I kind of realized is Sigmund Freud perhaps, studied more from a negative psychology. But what Patanjali has done is literally it's almost like a context-free grammar. If you follow the computer science, he literally laid out the structure of the mental map of the mind. So let's look at the next sutra. So what are those chittas vrittis? We always talk about, chitta, and then it has the vrittis. So what Patanjali has defined is vrittayaha panchataya klista klistaha. I mean, let's first look at the beautiful structure of this sutra, which is like going back to alpaksharam asandigdam vishwatomukam saravat astovam anavadyam. So which is like just 3 words. In 3 words, you capture the entire essence. It's like, in Telugu, sometimes we say it's like katte kutte teche, right? So the way basically is like vrittayaha panchataya. There are 5 vrittis, klista aklistaha. And the bistic klista is misery making, aklista is non-misery making. But Patanjali never says like they are joy making. All the tendencies of the mind are there only either misery making or they are non-misery making. That's all they do it, right? They are misery making or non-misery making. And that's what he basically says. And then he basically defines what are those 5 vrittis. And he basically says pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, smritihi, the vrittis. So these are the 5 types of tendencies. Anything that the mind is actually doing, he categorized this into these 5 types. The 5 types of tendencies. And very quickly, pramana is the right knowledge. So when you see an object, whether you interpret it the correct way, how do you interpret it the correct way? So that's what mind does, as it processing external stimuli, and based on your intellect and so on and so forth, it actually produces the correct interpretation to the chit, saying that, hey, this is let's say Ramakanchi or something like that, when you see it. So that's the first the mind does. And then the second thing is viparyaya. Viparyaya is, it actually presents a wrong interpretation of the image. It actually distorted interpretation, right? Sometimes, there is in Advaita, there is this beautiful analogy or a metaphor, which is that, if you see a rope in a dark, you might get confused with as a snake. And, in Pratasmarana Smotram, that basically, so Rajwa Bhujangamiva Pratibhasitam Maye. Rajwa is rope and Bhujangamiva is a snake. So it's like or even a mirage, in the desert, when you see a mirage and then you think that that's water or a lake. And so the mind creates a wrong perception. And vikalpa is, it's almost like fake news, which is like there is nothing there, but mind actually creates something. And then nidra is also one of the tendencies of the mind, and defines it. And the smriti is constantly regurgitating your old memories. So if you look at the mind, this literally is constantly doing these 5 activities. And then Patanjali, does it make sense? Like the 5 types? Isn't it beautiful how Patanjali listed it here? And then,
absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, absolutely, because nothing. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, and then let's actually parse each one of them. So then Patanjali gets into the next one. Okay, what is pramana? Pratyaya, pratyaksha, anumana, agamaha, pramanani. So the whatever we define as pramana, the right knowledge, it actually comes in 3 flavors. The first one is pratyaksha, your direct experience. You see something and your mind process it, and then you basically, present the right image to your chitta. So that's the first way. And the second one is anumana. Anumana is based on inference. So like, for example, if you see smoke, based on your intellect and based on your knowledge, you know that there must be fire. So it is like second way of direct knowledge is based on inference, based on your intellect. And the third one is agamaha, where you don't have anything, but you take things for granted, like Patanjali said some of the old scriptures, or Einstein said equals to mc square, or Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. We simply refer to an external scriptures, and then you take that for as granted. Then in Sanskrit we say this as arshavaku, right? Arshavaku, you take that for granted. So the direct knowledge, the pramana, comes in three flavors. Either it's based on pratyaksha, the direct perception through your senses, or anumana through inference, or based on some scriptures or external authority, and you basically know that is the direct knowledge. Right? Any questions on pramana?
Can you share the screenshot of the sutra?
Sorry,
can you share screenshot of the sutras, like the?
Yeah. It's gonna cause some postures.
Oh, okay. There's a pattern. Okay.
Not a pattern. It's just joking. It is like it's gonna cause some postures or something. But of course, I'll send some screenshots of this. Oh, you are taking some screenshot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like last time I put the sutras which you mentioned, like the.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the sutras, right? If you do a Google search, there's so much information out there, right? In interpretations, Ravi Shankar's, but feel free to do so. So yeah, absolutely. And then, so that is kind of pramana. And then let's actually look at viparyaya, which is the wrong knowledge, wrong perception, right? And what Patanjali defined this as, viparyayo, just one second. Viparyayo midya jnanam atadrupa pratishtam. So this one is a fantastic one. So in a viparyaya, what the mind is presenting is a wrong image to the chitta based on what you've seen. And midya jnanam, in fact, if you look at midya jnanam, it's actually similar to the word myth. Midya jnanam atat rupa pratishtam. So which is like, atat, which is not the rupa, which is the actual form, pratishtam. So basically it's like you see something, but then the mind interprets in a different way and presents it as a different image. Something like, sometimes we actually guess, right? When you see somebody and then, based on whatever you think that, somebody is doubting you, or maybe that guy is trying to cheat you, or this is like a rope versus snake, or a mirage versus water, and so on and so forth. So the mind sometimes projects a different image than what is already there. Does it make sense? And,
yes.
and isn't it beautiful that how the English word myth and then mithya jnanam and Patanjali, how close that they are? In fact,
and very logical also. Yeah, very logical.
I mean, this is a very, very, Patanjali Yoga Sutras is a very scientific, logical, and it's almost clinical assessment of the mind. And I don't know why all this neurology practitioners, psychologists, why they don't study Patanjali Yoga Sutras, right? Mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtam. And then the third tendency of the mind, which is vikalpa. The way Patanjali defined this as shabda jnananupati vastu sunyo vikalpaha. Vastu sunyo, that means there is nothing there. It's almost like fake news. The vastus, the substance is not there, but you are creating some words. Sabda jnana anupati. Somebody is trying to make some noise and creating some words and sounds and some knowledge without any object, without any substance. So it's imagination. So the mind creates some of its own hallucination of something that is not there. In fact, this is the latest trend now, right? It's all fake news. So we are living in the world of vikalpa so much. And no wonder there is so much dukkha in the suffering. So that is another mind's tendency, which is to create this vikalpa state where there is no substance, but you unnecessarily, I mean, you've seen that, right? And people that go through anxieties and so on and so forth, where there is nothing there, but they are actually doing it, right? I mean, it could even be viparya or vikalpa, right? Viparya is, you see something and you get scared when it's not that. Or vikalpa is like there is absolutely nothing there, but you think that which is that could even be a good thing or a bad thing. But the interesting thing is there is nothing real substantial there. And then the next tendency is nidra. In fact, Patanjali also defined nidra as one of the tendencies of the mind. In fact, it comes from the tamas, the guna, right? So the way it is defined is abhava pratyayalambana vrittir nidra. In fact, there is another variation of this sutra where you see abhaya pratyaya alambana tamo vrittir nidra, which is essentially when you are in the state of sleep, the mind is not restless. Mind is not, in a tranquil state. Mind is still processing all kinds of images, either in a dream state or even in the dreamless sleep state. Dreamless sleep state is perhaps the most relaxation step, but even there, the chit is, quite active, or not active. The chit is constantly observing. But in all the other forms of nidra is also the result of tamoguna. It's also one of the tendencies of the mind, right? And then the last one, the tendency is smritihi. Anubhuta vishaha sampramoshaha smriti. Anubhuta vishaha. In other words, the things that you previously experienced, anubhuta vishaha, right? Sampramoshaha is constantly not letting go, not erasing this, but constantly regurgitating these old experiences, old memories is also smriti. That's also another, the mind's tendency. In fact, this is something that I suffer a lot from. In fact, a lot of people credit me that, it is like, wow, you have this fantastic memory from my childhood. And I tell them that, please, somebody could, let me go of this burden, which is that, to be able to hold on to anubhuta vishaya, which is like, the things that occurred in the past and remembering them, it's one of the biggest burdens of the mind's tendency. Right. So the essence of the way of life.
Why is it a burden?
The thing is, if you look at an old memory, what does it do? Either it actually tries to grandiose one of your more memory, or it actually can create a different emotion. Like if it's like, for example, if somebody passed away or somebody left, you look at those memories and it's like you're interpreting it. So the thing is, when you are interpreting something that occurred in the past and letting it create any kind of emotion within you is not a good thing. The goal of the mind is to always live in the present moment. And
but,
living
are you saying you're fighting it, or because you said you want to eliminate it?
No, there is nothing. Actually, the thing here is there is nothing to be fighting about. I think the mind job essentially needs to become like a translucent, right? Which is like, let to see the pramana and then let it, present the same image to the chitta, and then don't try to interpret it, right? You just have to, act and so on and so forth. So when you are holding on to the past memories and then, either interpreting them and either you're getting into different moods or the emotions, it's unnecessary drama that we don't need to participate in.
I'm a bit
Yeah, just to
confused.
put it, to make it simple, right? So the self is busy in any of these five. So instead of it being relaxed state, it is moving with these fluctuations. Right? Whether it doesn't matter whether it is nidra or whether it is smriti.
Yeah.
anything. It is in the doing state and not in the being state. Right? And suddenly you are away from the fountain and the source that we are.
Actually,
It
the
is
self.
great memory, agreed. It is great memory, it is fantastic, agreed. Some great achievement, agreed. But is it a true self? Is it the true identity? Am I that? It is part of me, or it was temporarily part of whatever I did. But am I the electricity or am I the filament? Right? So the filament is thinking about, oh, glowing, I did this and all that. So it missed those moments of being residing in the self, which is the actually the infinite energy and the source that we are.
Actually, Ramakant, what you said is number one is the self doesn't quite act. Self is just a witness. But one of the things that you said is, if you look at the mind, thought is nothing but a form of energy. So as you are engaging in these tendencies, whether it is smriti or nidra or pramana or any one of these things or viparyaya, you're constantly dissipating a lot of energy and the thoughts. So I think there is some stat that we used to say about 90% of the thoughts that you produce in your memory is of 95% is of little value actually. So the thing is, your mind is constantly dissipating this energy that we have, the true energy that you can come from the self. You're constantly dissipating in either looking the past or present and so on and so forth. So when you restrain the mind in engaging in all these 5 tendencies, then what happens is, when you engage in one thought, one action, is almost like in a meditative state. And that becomes, you build your intuition powers, and that action becomes so powerful, and that's going to result in a control. So what you've done is you minimized all this dissipation of the energy, and you're keeping it like a nuclear energy now. And that nuclear energy, you engage in that one thought and one action that you're trying to do with no other dissipation that's happening. And that basically essentially results in samyama, the total control. The reason why we are going through all this energy wastage is because you're processing all these images, unnecessary images. And the self is enjoying the drama. Self is like, is watching, and then it basically is like, dude, what kind of images that you're producing, all these things. And then Seer is just watching this drama. And then as you purify the brain, and then the Seer gets presented only one constant image, which is based on one action that you're doing, that you are involved in the meditative state in full dharana and in the immersion, which is what is known as samyama. Trayam ekatva samyama, which is dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And when you engage in that one thought and one steady action in the pursuit of one object, and that's when Seer looks at it and says like, yes, now this is the divine action, and that is a guaranteed recipe for success.
But don't smriti necessary, like I touch a fire when I was a child, or when I touch a candle or something and I get burnt. I know that smriti is there for me, that, oh, I should not touch this fire again. I can't be continuously touching and saying, oh, this is fire each time. So understanding that the smriti is necessary, but not getting attached to it, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, actually the one is then Patanjali then moves on to, like, within 11 sutras, what Patanjali has done is he literally presented the core essence of yoga in the first 3, and then he created a mental map of what the mind, how the mind is going to act, and then he basically is like, now how do we act? So there are all these imagery. It's not like we just go into a cave and the mountain and then you suppress yourself from all this stuff. That's not the essence. What Patanjali has defined is, there is a way to restrain this turbulent mind, yet you can act in this world. And that's where it reveals the 2 keys. And these keys actually apply to everybody, somebody who is in the advanced stage of their yoga journey or the beginner. What it says is, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tan Nirodha. Abhyasa is a steady practice. Vairagya, which is like, maintaining a dispassionate yet exuberant, dispassionate yet exuberant way of action is results in tannirodha. That's how you can restrain the turbulent mind. And I'm going to quickly introduce these two things, and then we're going to perhaps spend more time in the abhyasa vairagya abhyam tannirodha. So I think these are the two keys. And in fact, and if you look at it, this abhyasa is something that we have to inculcate in everything that we do. Whether we are, if I'm an Olympic athlete, you have to maintain abhyasa, which is a steady practice, and then vairagya, but at the same time, don't be hankered around whether I'm going to win the gold medal or not. It is okay. I think Dhoni sometimes actually exhibits this, right? He gives his 100% effort, but he's sometimes nonchalant about whether we're going to win the World Cup or not, and that's why he's called as Mr. Cool, right? But of course, he also gets into some of those things. But if you have seen anybody that is succeeding on a continuous basis, is that those are the people that are following these two keys, abhyasa and vairagya abhyam. And vairagya is oftentimes, when I tell people that I'm trying to practice vairagya, then everybody mistakes vairagya as sannyasam, actually, renunciation. No. Vairagya is actually the Krishna Tattvam, which is that exuberant expression of life in everything that you do, but yet you're not attached. You're not stuck on anything, right? So very quickly, what is an abhyasa is? Abhyasa is satu dirgha kala, nairantara, satkara sevito drudabhumihi, which is any practice that you take to, even the yoga practice that we say is, right, which is dirgha kala, practiced over a long period of time, nairantara, without any interruption. There is no Memorial Day holiday or long day weekend or Sunday or this stuff. No. Dirgha kala, nairantara, satkara, with full honor, like a devotion. Sevito, which is like you're serving your body and mind and the self in the honor of a servitude. Then when you take these four attributes to your practice, that's when it becomes drudabhumihi. Drudabhumihi is, it gets rooted within. And the opposite of drudabhumi is, Patanjali also describes alabdha bhumikatva, which is like obstacles. You can actually see that there are 9 obstacles in somebody's practice, and one of them is alabdha bhumikatva. Somebody, because they don't do this with full honor and devotion and over a long period of time, it never gets established in themselves. Alabdha bhumikatva. But for it to be rooted within, we have to do this over a long period of time without interruption. And this applies to everything that we do. Mastery is not based on your gift. You can actually get gift. And there is also this Malcolm Gladwell's rule, right? 10,000 hours. Perhaps, whether it's 10,000 hours or longer, but it's kind of directly maps to this. And then vairagya is drishanashravika vishayava trushnasya vashikara sangya vairagyam, which is that don't getting stuck by what you experience through your senses, or whether it's hearing, listening, and don't getting stuck having that vashikara sangya, having that right knowledge is vairagyam. It doesn't mean, so you have to exuberantly participate in everything that we do. Like, for example, a simple example is I do a lot of yoga with a lot of postures, do all this stuff. Now, I'm going through this knee surgery and recovery. But if I get, hankered down, it's like, oh my God, when do I do my standing bow? And, what is this? Then you're stuck. It is like, do, if you can do standing bow, that's great. If you cannot do, that's great. Which is like, that might be it, and moving on. So that is a vairagya kind of state. I know it's very difficult, but that is another way. Those are the two keys that we need to practice, inculcate in our daily life. And what Patanjali has said is this abhyasa vairagya abhyam, it's not restricted to your time on the mat. This is not about what you do on the mat. This yoga is a way of life. It's almost like a 24/7 job. Everything that we do, we have to do this as an abhyasa vairagya abhyam tannirodha. So with that, let's conclude today's philosophy session, and then we can go a little bit deeper into the next session on Tuesday. But before we wrap up and do a simple mindfulness or meditation practice, are there any questions?
Nothing from mine.
Okay. If not, so let's stop here. And Ramakant ji or Sunil ji, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, Ji. No.
No, I think, yeah, once we are done with the practice, maybe I can share those slides on the chitta and the chitta that.
Actually, why don't you quickly share, and then we're going to do a quick Om kind of a meditation, and then we're going to wrap it up. And do you want to quickly share?
Yeah. I have a screen share. You might need, either you need to promote me, or I think it's saying you cannot start screen share while others sharing.
I'm going to stop share and then see if you can.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. I think Sunilji, you had this question. So for example, I think the one, I'm sorry, I did not get the name earlier. So this is one example of this Chitta Vritti Nirodha, right? See, for example, we talked about Smriti. And Smriti, I'm trying to look for my pointer, but I can't. Let's see if I can. Okay, the way it is, we'll go with it. So uncoloring of our colored thoughts, right? So typically, money, as soon as we see it, right? Those who had bad experiences with money may hate money, which is again a kind of coloration. But those who are hankering for money also have a coloration. It doesn't matter, right? But the person who is in the sthita looks at it as a clear, just money as money. Right? Similarly, let's look at happy hour, right? Some of those who are so waiting for happy hour, and there could be some temple going folks or traditional based folks who may hate the happy hour, right? But a person in yoga would see it as a glass with some liquid and people having it, and some people may hate it or some people may just enjoy it. So being in this, moving from this coloredness, whether for or against, is still stuck basically, right? Just looking things as they are. Right? As soon as I say, some mirchi bhaji, some of us may hate it or some of us may like it, things like that. Similarly, possessions. The person in yoga, right, who is in the self, would look at it as a purpose, the thing which moves me from one place to the other, and doesn't have any. I mean, so this person is always living and can live like a joyful thing. He is transparent. He's a 2-year-old with a 2-year-olds. He could blend with the females as a female. He could be with 70 years old as a 70-year-old. Like our Lord Krishna, throughout his life, he was like that. So this is about uncoloring our colored thoughts. So that was about memory. And
it's so beautiful, Ramakanji, which is like, in fact, the Yoga Sutra says, Tatparam Purusha Khyate Guna Vaitrushnyam, which is that we don't actually attribute any gunas or the qualities to the thing. You just see the things that they way are, Vaitrushnyam. Which is exactly, it is like, so that way you can always be in equanimous state, whether you are sleeping on the floor or you're sleeping on a 5-star hotel. Or,
and by the way, they are not, I mean, Patanjali is not saying, oh, don't sleep there. He's saying, go everywhere, be everywhere. But, just look at the underlying stuff, right? Just, that is where our metaphysics, the scientist, the artist, and the poet, right? They are all looking at the same way, right? So that is how it is. And coming to Sunilji's question, so this is, I think, a good infographic to help. So we have the body, the actions and the senses working outside, right, outward, the breath that connects, right? As soon as we change the breath rate, right, the thought rate changes right away. Okay? So we have the conscious mind, and here is the unconscious. And there is a watcher, there is a seer who can see through all these, right? Today, even if we close eyes or not close eyes, we can see the layers of desires, layers of anger, layers of wantingness, a lot of it, right? We can see all this. So this seer is what we are, the purpose of yoga is to just realize of this question mark there.
Yeah.
Where we say you can be in the world, but not of the world. Very, very simple. Then, so this part is called the chit. So what what earlier Sriniji was helping us understand is referring to this aspect here, chit. Now we have this aspect called the manas, the mind, and it has 4 different functions, and that is where the chitta comes into place. So let me jump to the slide. Again, I love infographics because they make everything very, very simple for us to understand. So the 4 functions of the mind eventually are buddhi, chitta, ahamkara, and the manas. But I'll jump right away to the chitta. So chitta is nothing but a storage place, right, of the countless latent impressions that we have. This is right, that is wrong, blah, blah. He's not saying eliminate the chitta. He's not saying, Patanjali is not saying, hey, remove the storage, the RAM that you have. No, he's not saying that. He's saying the ripples in this chitta, these latent impressions that we have, are the guys who are troubling you, buddy. You know, say like whoever asked on the call, the memory, it can still be there. But is it moving you away from the self and gripping you to somewhere else, right, into any of those 5 modulations called the pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti. Right? Instead, right, when that's where buddhi, the light, the distinguishing light within us is strong, then all the others fall into place, like here. But whereas if buddhi here, it's shadowy and not really running the game, then chitta starts to play very high. And how do we, and maybe, Sriniji, sorry for going to one more slide.
No, please. I'm learning. I'm always joy of learning.
Right. So now when we look at this, I love this Ratha model, the chariot, right? So where now this binds some more things here, right? So we have the passenger, the consciousness, that is called the chit, right? That Sunilji is asking us. Then we have this driver. And this is a very simple model, right? The indriyas are the horses, the reins, the connection is the manas, the mind. And we already talked about the 4 functions of the mind, the buddhi, ahankara, chitta. Right? So those 4. Then we have this buddhi. Right? Lot of times, the buddhi is very weak in our systems. When Einstein says we are using only whatever that percentage, he's talking about this buddhi aspect as well as the atman aspect. So buddhi itself is so weak within us, very, very low with the creative aspect. And in fact, it is not even the buddhi, right? It is like the filament thinking in a bulb that I am giving this light. Like we know this Sudarshana Chakra, which in Vishnu's hand felt, oh, I'm the guy actually killing everybody. Why is Vishnu great? Right? So that is the problem with this buddhi. But the true guy is actually this consciousness, the chit, the real passenger. Right? So once we understand all these components properly, and I think, thanks to Sriniji, who is helping us understand through these Patanjali Yoga Sutras, that we are reconnecting to all these components.
Yeah.
With that, Jaivrata, back to you, Sriniji.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is like, there's so much depth that we can actually go into this. And one other nugget that I picked up is, apparently we have so many neurons at any point in time, and every day, only about 5 to 10% of the neurons are active. Everything else stays dormant. And, every day you have different types of neurons that are acting. So the reason why we need to do this abhyasa to strengthen our intellect and so on and so forth is that you're actually strengthening every neuron with this yoga memory. So if you only practice one day, you know, that 10%, gets energized, and then tomorrow you are in a different world and then you don't have it. So the reason why we have to do this all the time is so that you program the entire system, the 100% neurons. And then when the 100% neurons get energized with this yoga system, then there is an unlimited ananta samapatibhyam, unbounded power that you can unleash. So there's so many concepts that you can actually bring into it. Let's continue this journey and the study. And Ramakantji, as anytime you're free, please join us, and we always learn from you. So with that, let's gently close, and we'll do chant Om 3 times, and then do quick meditation, and then we'll wrap up today's session. Take a deep breath. Exhale. We'll chant Aum. Take a breath for Aum. One more deep breath. One final one. Aum. Om is the Trinity, which is the Brahma energy, the Vishnu energy, and the Shiva, the transformation energy within us. Patanjali says, the Ishvara, Tasya Vachaka Pranavaha. That Ishvaras is referred to as the Om. Feel the Om pervading every cell of your body and all around us. We'll end today's session with a final prayer. Follow with me. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhagvavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We wish everybody to be happy. We wish everybody to be free of sorrow and disease. Wish everybody to see only auspicious things, and let there be peace everywhere. These wonderful thoughts, rub your palms, generate the fire and love of knowledge. Cup your eyes, transmit the divine knowledge to give us the right vision. Divyam dadati te chakshu. And slowly, with a bright smile, gently open your eyes. Thank you all for sharing this wonderful evening satsang with us in discussing Yoga Sutras and some of the knowledge from Bhagavad Gita from Ramakanji. And thank you all. And we'll try to meet again on Tuesday and not next Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you, Srinidhe, for creating this environment for learning. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep. It's all about learning and sharing, right? The two keys of life. Srini, joining.
Yeah. So, Srinidhe, I think learned a lot, and I hope we learn more from you. And so I think yeah, you are there, and your friends, and I think you called Guru, but friends are also there here. So I think we probably should bring them in more, I guess.
Yeah, we should do this. Yes, I think the more people we bring multiple facets and the perspectives, and then the more we share with each other, it kind of multiplies. The joy of learning just multiplies.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the Jnana part as well as the practice part both will grow with time. So I think we were trying to do the asana and pranayama part, right? And the meditation part. I think when we did this survey, I think what we found was around, I think 15, maybe 20 responses I saw. Most of them wanted it at the end of Saturday or Sunday morning. I think it's evenly split, and around 1 hour to 1.5 hour in duration. So I think 1 hour probably is a decent one, and looks like Saturday evening or Sunday morning. So it's evenly split there. But we can see like there were 200 plus people in the group, but not many people are committed.